2 pieces of advice. Get quality of earnings light. Number 2, do not wait until you're ready to sell and you're ready to retire. That's the biggest advice I can give you. I'll start with the last one. If you wait until you're ready to leave and not practice anymore, you're going to get significantly less for your practice. If you're able to stay on for 3 years, 5 years, you're going to get significantly more for your practice.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao. Hope everybody's having a great day no matter where you're listening or viewing this podcast. I wanted to thank the sponsors, both Dental Intelligence and the doc sites, for their continued support, allowing me to come to your inbox every single Friday at 5 a.m. with a new release. We're into 2025 already. I want to remind everybody about my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, which is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, September 26th and 27th at Pier 66. Please check out superchargeyourdentalpractice.com to find out more about this great event coming back to Florida after a year in Scottsdale. Today's episode is called Selling Your Dental Office in 2025 and Beyond. My guest is Elijah Desmond. Elijah is a seasoned dental entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and 2-time best-selling author. With 7 successful company exits, Elijah's experience spans building and scaling businesses, optimizing practice value, and guiding professionals through transitions. His book, Serial Entrepreneur: From Startup to Success, is a comprehensive guide on launching and growing business with confidence, offering practical strategies from his own journey. Elijah has transformed dental education through its innovative ventures, including Smiles at Sea and the Dental Festival, creating dynamic learning experiences. His community, Trapped in an Op, supports 25,000 dental professionals seeking alternative career paths beyond clinical roles. Known for blending education and fun, Elijah delivers impactful courses that empower professionals to unlock maximum value in their practices and navigate successful sales independently. Elijah's hands-on approach combines motivational insight and proven strategies, equipping dental professionals with the tools to maximize profitability, secure favorable terms, and align post-sale roles with long-term goals. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Elijah Desmond. Elijah, thank you so much for joining me again. This is your second time, and I think maybe I have 5 to 7 people in the 8 years that I've been doing this that I've invited back for a second time on the podcast, but we're talking about something entirely different today. So thank you for joining me again, and I know you're with me from Ohio, so I appreciate you joining me from afar, not from Florida, where you're not too far from me anyway. So.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Tap, tap, tap. If you can hear me. Thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's always amazing to talk with you in general. Happens to be on a public forum this time. But, I've loved watching you throughout the years, speak on all of the stages and basically educate the masses. So I want to give you your flowers for that first. And thank you for the opportunity to come back and join you with all of your listeners.
Well, I appreciate it. And why don't you your career has spanned a lot of stuff. I still remember, Elijah, and I don't know if you remember this, I met you for the very first time in 2014. And it was at the ADA meeting, and you were starting, and I can't remember, Carmel, I think it was called.
Carmine, not Caramel.
It was a social media platform that you were trying to build, and that's where we met at the ADA meeting in Washington, D.C. That was the very first time I met you, and I'm like, who is this guy? So, it goes a long time. Obviously, you have a lot of different ventures that you've had, but that's where my very first remembering on who you were.
Yes, absolutely. And when you were saying that, I'm like, it's either ADA or it's Greater New York, one of the two. And spot on. I 100% remember. And the cool thing is I'm still the same guy. I just got a few different things. But same core values, same person, same smile, same me, just doing a lot of different things now. Well, a little bit of things, but you know what I mean.
Got it. So, people know you because of your Smiles at Sea. People know you because of the Dental Festival, which you now have transitioned to Chief Fun Officer, if I remember correctly from reading online. And now Devin's handling that. You've been involved in so many different things. So it seems like you went away from doing dental talks. Now you're going to be back on the stage again after taking some time off. So can you tell everybody where your focus is right now? Obviously, it involves people selling dental practices, but talk about where you're positioned now in the industry.
Yeah, so I think first off, like for the people who don't know who I am, have to understand my why first, and it's actually not necessarily in dentistry. My why is saving kids' lives. So I'm a motivational speaker for kids, high school kids specifically, and I have the ability to save kids' lives from the stage. Not to get you all sad and feeling emotional, but I need to tell you that is most important in my life. And obviously, God first, man above it first. But the most important thing is my kids. I happen to have some businesses in dentistry, one specific one that I have now. And it's basically making people's dreams come true by selling their dental practice and getting them the best terms and the best price. That's in a nutshell of what I'm doing from a business standpoint right now in an entirely different format than the industry is used to. So I'm basically shaking up intentionally the brokerage space and matching practices and making these dentists that work their butt off all these years when they sell. Ultimately, I'm who helps them find their next step.
Got it. So let's talk about what you're doing now, and you have something called Dental Pitch Brokerage. Yes. Which from its name is a way you're helping dental practices be sold, or you're helping the owner find a seller or a buyer of their practice. So can you talk about, because obviously you've been very involved with the hygienists and getting hygienists and finding them another career outside the op, those types of things. You've involved in dental education. This is entirely something very, very different. So can you talk about how you kind of came, I don't want to say come up with the idea because there's other people doing it, but how you got started in this particular space?
Well, let me be clear that I am for helping dental professionals find alternative careers, side gigs, etc. And it could be a dental hygienist, yes, but also a dentist, a team member of any sort, and ultimately helping them to find an additional revenue stream or a replacement revenue stream, because there's so many opportunities in this amazing industry. But to go back to your question specifically, like how did it happen? Well, permission to be vulnerable, Len?
Sure.
Pandemic hit. And that pandemic was like awful for some dentists, and some had to actually close their practice down, but most were open within 1 to 3 months. Mm-hmm. Right? For me, as somebody who brings dental professionals together to give them continuing education on a cruise ship, my life was like over, brother. Like, think about like your name in the whole industry, and this is what you do. You speak, all over the world for kids and in the country for dental professionals, and you have your own events, and somebody says, and you can relate to this because you are like one of the most sought after speakers in dentistry. So you really can relate. When everybody says, sorry, event's closed, you got to go virtual. What do you do if you have an event and that's one of your biggest businesses and it's on a cruise ship? Like I literally, it was terrible for me. It's like if somebody came and took your identity, this stole it and said, I'll hold it as long as I want. For me, it was 3 years. So while I'm watching many of the companies that I've supported in different products, services, software, they're raising, millions of dollars, or they're selling during the pandemic or right before. And I'm like, how are they doing that? Because right now I'm going to have to go take an EDIL loan, which I did, $150,000 to save the ship. That's what I did.
No pun intended. Save the ship.
Yes. But that's what I had to do. And I thought to myself, like, how do I get educated? How do I understand what people are going through? And I said, you know what? I love this show called Shark Tank. I love it. And I'm like, what if I could bring something that's not the same, but has some similarities, but bring it into dentistry and call it Dental Tank? And I did. So I had like over 100 companies pitch me their business. These are dental companies, not dental offices yet. Dental companies, they pitched me their business, and I picked 25 of them to come on the stage where they would pitch how they're looking to raise between $300,000 and $3 million. And then I have about 80 to 100 strategic investors. So what's a strategic investor? It's somebody that can not only invest, but they basically could grow your business. So I had 80 to 100 strategic investors reach out and say, I want to be on that stage. I want to be one of the people. I picked 8. So we had 25 people and 8 people, and we had 7 successful raises. So the companies pitched the strategic investors. We had 7 successful raises. 5 events later, I'm like, man, I'm kind of at the wrong end of this. I'm with like startup companies helping them to raise money. But like, what if I was at the very end meaning they already blew up their million or multi-million dollar company and they wanted to make an exit. I met my business partner, Matt Ornstein, one of the most intelligent humans that I've ever met. And he goes, Elijah, I think you have something bigger than you think. And I think that this actually could have a lot of different tweaks, and I'd love to partner with you and be your business partner. I brought him as a business partner, and it's just been such a blessing since, because he owns himself 71 dental practices with Oak Dental Partners. He has 9 car washes. He has Amazon warehouses. He's in commercial real estate. I mean, he literally is doing so much in the business world. And he said, I want to join forces with you. And I said, well, hey, what do you think about selling dental practices? Similar format, but not public, confidential setting. What do you think about doing that, Matt? And he's like, oh my God, Elijah, you're a genius. Let's do it. We're doing it. And now we have 55 buyers, major buyers, and over 430 sellers in our pipeline. And we've just launched like a year ago this business, which is Dental Pitch Brokerage. So that's how we got started from the beginning. That's the story. It was a tragedy at first, and it's turned into something amazing.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So you mentioned that you have 55 buyers and 400 plus sellers or so in the pipeline. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Talk about how you got those, because you've said you've only been in business a year. That's a lot of people to have in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll first start with it's relationship marketing. I have served our industry in so many ways throughout my journey, right? And I really came out to the public in dentistry probably 2014 when I started going to trade shows, which is where we met. When I started having these conferences, 2015. And what I've done is I have had these events that bring all these people together, and I'm connecting people, I'm serving people, and ultimately I'm creating influencers in our industry. I'm giving them the platform to go and speak on these stages. And, I have 25 dental conferences, the decision makers that are coming to my event to scout all these speakers. We have the dental socials at the dental festival, right? And that's the top 5 influencers in podcasting, authors, DSO influencers, speakers, consultants, and the top 5 on all the social media channels. And it's like an award ceremony, like the Grammy Awards. And I put them together, and then it's voted on who wins. Well, what's my point? That's where most of my sales are coming from, my sellers. They're coming from relationships. Trusted relationships with people I have already met, I've already been serving, and we blew up. And so since we're doing something so unique in our industry, the buyers naturally just came to us, came to me. We have this amazing board of advisors as well that's helped bring buyers in. But since I've already been established in our industry and I just did something a little bit different, it was really easy to get where we're at today.
That's awesome. So obviously there are many ways to sell a dental practice. I hired a broker, and it didn't work. They didn't sell it. I sold it to my associate afterwards.
Oh, wow.
So they couldn't sell
my practice. I
practice.
Hear about that, by the way.
Yeah, they couldn't sell my practice. It was interesting. I put my practice up for sale right before the pandemic, and then pulled it down, obviously. But after we came back, it wouldn't sell. I had a $1.3 million practice fee for service. It was bizarre. So you obviously can try to do it yourself. You can use a broker. You can use, there's so many, all these different Facebook groups. What's the advantage of using someone like yourself? And I'm assuming, I'm going to assume, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, I'm going to assume it's because you have this vast network of people looking to buy, which is 55 buyers. So you have a huge network of people looking to buy practices. So, but is that the answer? Is there another answer as well?
Yes, no, it's a little bit different. First off, you're right to an extent. In the big picture, it's access. Who do you have access to? So since I've served so much in the community, I have access to all of these people. That's number one. But we're doing things completely different than everybody else in the industry on the front end, right? So what do we do? What are we doing different? First off, I don't know if you know this, Len, and sorry if that makes anybody mad listening to this podcast, but I'm kind of a DJ. I've been in 9 countries and 25 cities in the past 2 years DJing dental conferences.
I'm familiar.
Right. So I like to have fun, and I love music. So what I did was I incorporated music It's like one major change, but I incorporated music with the sell process. And people are like, how in the world does this have anything to do with selling in practice? Well, I'll put it, to light for you. So what happens is that we fly out the seller dentist to a event, a conference. And we put them up in hotel a couple nights, and we basically have them come in the room when we call them, say, hey, you're up. We have them walk into these doors, into this room where there's 10 at a time, 10 buyers that are sitting in the front row. When that door opens, their walk-on song hits. Like, if you can imagine, like, the biggest moment in your life when you're about to ultimately sell what you've built, and this is like the highlight of your life. And what would you walk on to that scene with? Like, what was the song that you would listen to? Well, we jam that song. I mean, there's sound system. It's a big deal. And the buyers are standing up and they're clapping. They're clapping. It's an exciting environment. And they get on the stage, and it's like this, Len, like when you were selling, you're probably like, nobody realizes like how amazing this opportunity is. And I wish that I could tell the world of buyers. That's what we do. So we basically have them walk onto the stage, everybody's clapping, and then myself or my business partner in a relaxed environment interview them. Now, we have a little bit of an advantage because we already know them very well, and we're asking them all of the right questions, such as, tell me about your journey. Right? That's easy to ask. We ask them, questions like, what makes you want to sell your practice? How long do you plan on selling? How's the culture? How's your team? Easy questions. We do not ask them financial questions, right? Because a quality of earnings light was already done in advance, and we have a tear sheet given to all these buyers. They already have it. They have the sheet in front of them. And they're happy to be watching, say, up to 10 locations, or not 10 locations, but 10 different dentists selling at a time. So then they get a chance to ultimately ask questions to sellers. And then they sign up for the time that they're going to meet with that individual during the event, one-on-one 30-minute meetings. And it is so different and unique than anybody else has done. Now, I'm sure eventually people will end up doing the same thing. It's going to happen, right? I don't know when, but it's going to happen. But what we're doing is different. And we're taking down the broker wall where you may not meet your seller until halfway down the process, 25%, at the end. And then it's almost like, dang, it's almost too late to change your mind. It's not, but it might be, but you get to meet them immediately. You're dating. It's like dating meets, dental tank, but it's now dental pitch. So that's what we're doing differently. We've brought everybody together because of my relationship specifically. And it's a fun process. And we're getting the doctors the top value because after the event, we're negotiating the highest cost for them, but more importantly, the best terms of their exit or transition.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, now that you're involved in this type of space, what are a couple pieces of advice you can give to someone that is looking to sell to a DSO or doesn't know who they want to sell to? They're listening to this, they're a dentist, they're at the point of their career that they're winding down, they're ready to transition. What pieces of advice can you give them to help make that decision easier for them?
Two pieces of advice. Get a quality of earnings light, number one. Number two, do not wait until you're ready to sell and you're ready to retire. That's the biggest advice I can give you. I'll start with the last one. If you wait until you're ready to leave and not practice anymore, you're going to get significantly less for your practice. Mm-hmm. If you're able to stay on for 3 years, 5 years, you're going to get significantly more for your practice. So a lot of people, they're like, well, you know what? When I'm ready to retire, I'll call you. No, 3 to 5 years out is when you call, not at the end, because ultimately you need to prepare for the sell. You need to increase your margin, okay? And at the end of the day, it takes time to do that, okay? So then when you're ready, you sell, you make great money, and you just dentist, as Paul Goodman would say. He says just dentist or dentisting, right?
Dentisting, yes.
You just do your dentisting. You practice dentistry. You don't worry about the people issues, the cash flow issues, the pain in the neck business issues. You just practice for 3 to 5 years. You get paid a really good salary, and you take the chips off the table. So you're making a ton of money and you're drifting into retirement. You're not retirement. So people need to call in advance. So that's number one. Number two, get a quality of earnings light. Okay, so what is a quality of earnings? A quality of earnings is an analysis of your practice within the past, say, 4 years. It gives you exactly what your trailing 12 was. Look at 2024, 2023, 2022. It says that the payer schedule, right? Are you 50% PPO, 50% fee for service? Do you have Medicaid? How many chairs do you have? What do the numbers look like? What are your margins? It really tells you everything that you need to know about your practice prior to selling. And what I see is some dentists will go and they'll sell to a DSO, and the DSO is doing the quality of earnings, or private equity, or emerging groups, or even a private practice dentist. They're valuing the practice. That makes absolutely no sense. That's like going and trying to sell your house and not knowing what it's worth, letting them tell you. Makes zero sense. So you really need to know what your practice is actually worth. And once you know what your practice is worth, then you can sell your practice. But you shouldn't do that until you actually know what you can get. And so those are the two specific. I mean, I can go on for days with this, but that's two things that for people, even if you don't use a broker, which is kind of crazy, but if you don't use a broker, Len, I know this, you're interviewing me, but man, I would love to hear, did you use a local broker? And don't call anybody by name, obviously, but was it a local? We're a nationwide broker.
It was a pretty well-known broker.
Okay.
So,
and you are Len, you are the man. So,
yeah, it was, and I was not over asking. I ended up accepting pennies in the dollars because I heard he had moved to Florida at that point. I was commuting every week to the office. I mean, I was done. So it was just an easy transition for me to, because I was not willing. I was not a DSO fit because I wasn't staying on. So DSOs were eliminated. So it had to be a private buyer, basically.
Makes sense.
So what I should have done was years early when I was made an offer by a DSO, I should have sold and stayed on for 5 years. That was not in the cards at that point. So, it's interesting that you're taking this position now because a lot of people are in the position where they are thinking about what 3 to 5 years down the road is. And I agree with you. You need to make this type of decision 3 to 5 years before you want to retire because your practice will be worth a lot more if you're going to stay on. If you're just going to leave right after you transition, the practice is worth far less, unfortunately. So
Can I explain how that works? Can I explain that so everybody just understands the reason why it's worth less? Is that okay?
Sure.
So first off, let me be very clear. I love my private practice dentist. I am for dentistry at large. I am not heavy DSO. I'm for everybody. So I want the best situation for everyone. But let me make sure everybody understands the big picture. So what happens is if you are selling your practice to a private practice dentist, okay, a lot of the time, this is not all the time, but a lot of the time, it is maybe an associate that's looking to buy a new practice, or it's a dentist that has a couple locations, a few dentists working for them, and they can absorb your practice or have one of their dentists go over. And so ultimately, it's okay for you to leave. But what if it is a DSO? What if it's a non-dentist? So a DSO purchases you, and ultimately, they need people. So they want both you and your team to stay on, and they're willing to pay top dollar to do so. And it's a smart decision. I mean, they come from money, right? They come from money and they want the best. And by the way, just to put this out there, every DSO is not a great DSO. Every private practice dentist is not a great private practice dentist. But don't put a blanket and assume everybody's bad or everybody's good. But ultimately, the DSO keeps you on board. And let's just be realistic. You're making between, I'm going to be conservative, 25 to 35% of what you're producing, okay? And you're making that for the next 3 to 5 years. So let's just say you're in $1 million practice. And let's just say you're making $300,000 a year. Let's be, conservative. Well, $300,000 times 5 is $1.5 million.
Yep.
Right? And your $1 million practice, you sell it. Let's just say, we're not going to talk about EBITDA on this call, even though you may want to interview Matt because he wrote the book on EBITDA. Right? But basically, let's go off collections. So you get 100% of collections. And by the way, just so you know, if you're a practice that's just say lower than $2 million, you can expect reasonably, unless you have crazy high margins, anywhere between low end 70% and high end 120% of your practice value, not to go into the EBITDA weeds, right? 70 to 120. And ultimately, you get 100%, so you get $1 million, right? So let's just say that somebody says the value of your practice is worth $1 million, and they're willing to give you 80% upfront. Okay, 70 or 80, but say 80%. So you're gonna get a check for $800,000 right now. Okay, chips off the table. And then on top of that, you're getting 30%. Okay, so now you're gonna get $300,000 a year. Okay, so $300,000 a year is 1.5 plus 800,000. So total of that $2.3 million plus you still have 20% in. Now, they're gonna give you something called, and sorry if I'm speaking too fast, but if you're following, call me up, conversations are free and we'll go through this slow. But now you have 20% still in. They're gonna give you something called an earnout. This is what a DSO is gonna be doing. What an earnout is they just wanna make sure you maintain the numbers that you did before. So don't go and try to inflate your top line revenue, do all this marketing and rah-rah, because you have to keep that pace for the next 3 to 5 years. Because that's going to be dependent on what you get. You could get more, could get an earn up. You could get more than that 20% was worth when you sold. You could get nothing at all if you just say, I'm not practicing anymore, which some people do. But it's very important to understand the numbers game and why people are willing to pay top dollar, right? And lastly, there's arbitrage. If you sell your practice, let's just say for $1 million, if you sell it to a group, the group buys it, and as soon as they buy it, because you bring it into their portfolio, that practice may be worth $2 million or $3 million just from them buying it. So they have the ability to pay you more because of the arbitrage. They have the ability to pay you more because it's now valued more since it's in their group. So anyways, to me, that's the major difference between selling to a private practice dentist and selling to something else. And like I said, some dentists just want to get out, and that's okay. We have private practice dentists. And by the way, the 55 buyers that we have are not private, not including private practice dentists. That's a whole nother huge group of people. But the ones that we're talking about specifically are emerging groups, family offices, private equity, large DSOs, and some smaller groups. Hopefully that helps. But thanks for letting me talk about the difference.
That definitely helps. You know, again, someone's listening to this podcast and their practice is worth $700,000, $800,000. Well, that's what they collect. They're not; those practices are not normally DSO quality practices. It's like the $1 million minimum usually is where they are. So if they're listening, can you give some advice to those lower level practices on what they can be doing here?
Yes, absolutely. So the practices that are 500,000, 700,000, I don't even like the word lower level. I think it's just more so like you have a family, you got kids. You're not really, it's a business that's helping you have a good lifestyle. So I don't even like the word lower level. But I'm speaking directly to those practices that are 500,000 to 700,000. Here's what I would encourage you to do. I would encourage you to talk to people like Lynn, who know how to grow the practice to the $1 million plus mark. I wouldn't sell if I were you at the 570 unless you had to, because there are actually groups, there's people that will acquire you, right? But if I'm in your shoes, I'm talking to an expert who has cracked the $1 million mark like Lynn, right? That's been there and done that and had the experience. Not somebody that's out of the industry that's just like business, somebody that's a dentist just like yourself. I would encourage you to talk to them because life is so much better once you crack that $1 million mark and people are bidding for your practice. And then you could live just off of your interest, invest your money and live off of the interest, but get a coach, hire somebody. Don't stop yet unless you have to.
Yeah, you actually have a lot more buyers when you raise that level to the $100 million. It opens up to a wide range of buyers. I agree with you 100%.
Yep.
So, Elijah, I want to transition now just because of time. I want to transition to my lightning round Q&A. I think you're going to enjoy this. I'm going to ask you 8 to 10 questions. The most important part here, because you can elaborate really a lot. These are very short answers. We'll never get through 8 to 10. These are like
that punchline.
Yeah. These are not long, drawn out answers. I let you speak, and that's great. You gave a great explanation.
Yes.
So let's go into this. Let's see here. Let's find one. Okay. How many hours a day do you work on average?
Awesome. Well, let me break this down for you. You're like, no elaborating. I work 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, no appointments Wednesday. I work 8 hours, so 8 times 3 is 24. I work about 30 hours a week.
Okay. What 3 adjectives describe your strengths?
Oh, man. Adjectives. Colorful, fun, eager.
Okay.
Ambitious, that's 4. Go ahead. I elaborated.
That's right. What is your greatest fear and how do you manage it?
My greatest fear is letting my little girls down. My 5-year-old and my 9-year-old and my wife. And I manage it by going out every day and giving 100%, waking up early in the morning and giving it my all until I fall asleep.
Got it. It's great. It's great. How do you know, and this is a great question for you, I told you it's random, how do you know when you have the right idea?
Everybody signs up. It's not hard, is when you have that right idea. That's Dental Pitch.
Who do you look to for advice or mentorship?
Yeah, right now it's my business partner, Matt Ornstein. He's one of the most successful humans and humble at the same time. It's Matt Ornstein. And then secondly, my business coach that I've had for over 3 years, Dr. Eric Roman.
Do you have a favorite business podcast? And don't say Raving Patients, please. So do you have a favorite business podcast?
No, because I'd be making it up.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. What kind of shower ideas do you get? Like in the shower, what type of ideas do you get?
Shit. Well, how about running? Because the ideas are, what kind of ideas do I get in the shower? Honestly, I'm thinking about my next call, or I have somebody on speakerphone and I'm talking to them. So my favorite ideas that I get in the shower is what I'm going to do next. I can't answer that question good, but that's the truth.
All right. What have you learned from the most successful person you know?
Math. So I learned, I sat down with Matt Ornstein, my business partner, for 2 hours, and on 5 sheets of paper, he mathed me to death. He is the most educational, smart human that I've ever met in my entire career, and most successful. I learned math.
All right. What is the number one tactic you use to stay organized?
Hire organizers.
That's funny. How do you define success?
Oh, man. 3 different ways. First is family. That's number 1. Right behind it, it should be number 1 is health. Right? How's your success in your health world? And then the last one is financial or business.
All right. What habits have helped make you successful?
Running, going to the gym. But I'm going to tell you that's my successful with health. For family, putting the phone down. Spending one-on-one time.
It's awesome. That's awesome.
And specifically for business, what has made me the most success is relationships. Giving pure, not looking for anything in return.
Got it. What book have you read multiple times, or what is your favorite book?
Awesome you say that. I have a learning disability, and I actually cannot comprehend what I read. I've never read one single book. Really? I just started reading about 9 months ago, and I read 3 books total in my whole life, and because I've learned how to do the audio books.
So you listen to the books.
I've just found out that I can 9 months ago.
That's great. That's great.
And the number 1 book of all 3 is The Go-Giver by Bob Berg.
Okay. This is an interesting question. I'm curious how you answer this one. If you had a magic stick, what are 3 things you would change in the world today?
I would make everybody kind. Number 1, kindness above everything. The second thing is I would make everybody essentially have money to do what they want and not live on the street. Poor would not exist in my world. And the third thing that I would do is I would make sure that my family has a healthy life, to the best, to the fullest. I'm talking blue zone type of healthy until they're 100 years old.
Got it. Last question. What is one subscription, either business or personal, that you cannot live without?
Oh yeah, that's definitely Asana. It's a project management platform. It's hands down. That's what it is. Asana.
Okay, perfect. Great answers. Great questions. You did awesome there. So Elijah, people are listening to this and they want to find out more about potentially selling their practice. How do they reach out to you, or how do they contact you to find out more about Dental Pitch Brokerage?
Yeah, absolutely. So just go to the website, dentalpitchbrokerage.com. We also have the ebook there for free on EBITDA that you can download at no cost. That's a second way to get a hold of us. We'll get your information there. Or if you want to personally email me, conversations are free. Okay? So it's Elijah at dentalpitchbrokerage.com. And I don't care where you're at in your career. If you're $400,000 in collections, if you're $40 million in EBITDA, Conversations are free. I'm happy to help the industry and give purely, and I don't need to work with you. I want to give you advice and help you, and that's how to reach me. Social media too. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm responding. It's me. It's not a bot.
He's all over the place, all over the place. Elijah, you're a great guest. Thank you so much for joining me today. Guys, if you are thinking of selling, you want to, I like to say, pick Elijah's brain. He said conversations are free. Please reach out to him. He just gave you his contact information. Elijah, should they mention they heard about you through the podcast as well?
Absolutely. I would love to know where you heard
Please
about.
mention that you heard about Dental Pitch Brokerage through the Raving Patients podcast. That would be helpful to him. Again, if you like the episode, you want to talk to Elijah, please reach out. Please let your friends know, your colleagues know. If it hit a nerve with you, please reach out to them as well and tell, hey, listen to Len's podcast. I would really appreciate it. And as I end every single one of my episodes, remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, Elijah, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Take care, Len.